Happy Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Tropical MBA podcast. Today is an exciting one because I get to talk my book, literally. I wrote this book some years ago before the exit. If you email me, I'll send you a free copy. Still holds up. AI hasn't made it irrelevant just yet. And I want to talk about this interesting dynamic where when founders get a lot of money for their businesses, they are often deeply disappointed by this situation. Sort of strange. And I want to talk around this issue, the big pile of money issue, as well as the P issue, the purpose issue. And it's kind of hard to talk about, but I think a lot of us undervalue purpose. And perhaps there's something we can learn here and run better businesses in the process. So let's zorb into this post I found from Matt Paulson, who's a fantastic entrepreneur, been on the show before, and he shared this on X. There's a gentleman named Jake who posted to Reddit some years ago about the experience of selling his company MVMT, which is a fashion watch brand. I'll just read you part of the post here. He said, "I sold my company for millions and I'm more lost than ever." Okay, so I sold my company MVMT a few years ago for a lot of money. He's talking about an 8-figure fortune, and thought all my problems would be solved. I made my life really cushy and comfortable. I optimize for being as stress-free as possible. I play video games when I want, I wake up when I want, and I have no reason to get out of bed if I don't need to. I've always thought this was the dream and that I'd be happy forever until I wasn't. I'm in an incredibly unique situation and wanted to share some things I've learned and I'm still working through. He goes on to share a lot of really deeply personal things, that he's socially awkward, that he built MVMT just for the money, that he had an unhealthy relationship with himself and his values in life. My money and ego were the driving forces. He talks about that. And he talks about this journey he's going on to find the P word, to find purpose in life, and accepting the idea that there is necessarily uncomfort and pain associated with any work. And he talks about the piece that he's still struggling with, which is starting again. Because, well, he had this big success and now you have to be bad at stuff again. You have to fail again in order to do the next thing. And I think this is really, really relatable. It's like, as a founder, we think we have a good thing going and then something changes and now we got to restart again. And this is why I think it's interesting to touch on these endpoints and these goals that we set for ourselves and what role does purpose play in all of that. But I want to start here because I wrote a book on this and I talked with tons of founders that have exited. I just think it's a pretty fascinating situation. Why are founders sad with making all this money? And some of my research suggests that it's like half. So it's a big number of people that reach their goals, their financial goals, and they're not happy at all. Matt Paulson, who shared the post, basically indicated he's in the no sell camp. Like, if you love running your company, why would you sell the thing? And that is the conclusion for a lot of people who look into this. But I have 4 reasons here why founders are often disappointed by their exits. The first is that, when you look at the logo of your company, the same part of your brain that lights up when you look at a family member with love lights up when you look at your own logo, which is kind of ridiculous. Maybe your brain is just sort of multitasking, using the same area, resource management. But it's typically going to be the case that the types of buyers that buy our companies will change the soul of the company. That one thing that you cared about the most, that you would preserve against all costs. Realistically, the buyer is not going to value that the same way as you. And this is often very devastating to founders. So I'll flag that up. The number 2 reason founders are sad about this is the lack of positive stress or eustress and how that relates to our self-esteem and our sense of purpose. We don't actually want a stress-free life. I think that is one of the punchlines that jumped off the page here. It's sort of an interesting thing to face down because I certainly in my head have all these kinds of fantasies about under the coconut tree, nobody bothering me, you know? But it's weird that you don't actually want that. What you want is to choose the positive stressors, the challenges to overcome, so you have a sense of self-esteem and purpose. This is something Ian and I were speaking about recently. We had a very challenging day in the business, and we were kind of like, this is why we're here, to solve these challenges. If we don't solve these challenges, there's no one else to solve them. I mean, we're not trying to be grandiose about it, but it's a small little corner of the universe that we're responsible for. And it's worthwhile work, and it gives us a sense of meaning and purpose. It also pushes us. It's like that Henry Rollins quote about the steel. How you feel different when you go to the gym first thing in the morning and you overcome the weight. And our businesses give this to us. And I often use this term when I think about entrepreneurs. When I hang out with DC members, for example, I think about like the dignity in the room. And why is it dignified? Well, because of the level of responsibility they have for the outcomes and for what happens in their businesses is so different than hanging out with normies. Often there's like a class of people that you can spend time with that they can't even really say what they do. They sort of just exist in a space and communicate things around. It's not the case with founders. Like, there's real weight to your actions. And that weight drives so much of our esteem and our sense of purpose. And when it's gone, it can be devastating. And I guess I'm bringing it up because it's kind of hard to notice when it's there. It just feels like stress sometimes. Like, I'm just worried about all this stuff. And one of the things that I thought when I read Jake's post was, it's also a privilege to have challenges worth overcoming. And so we can reflect on that the next time we're feeling a little bit stressed out about our business. Is like, ultimately we need to choose what we're responsible for and the stress we take on. And those are the things that drive meaning in our lives. Not all of the things, but they do drive meaning in our lives. And so I think the fantasy of completely avoiding those feelings is what Jake found ultimately disappointing. And so there you go. That's number 2. Number 3, it's sort of like the there you are thing, which is, Jake talked about, he had these sort of lingering challenges with the way he felt about himself. And it's often that self-image that drives us to work so hard on our business. It's like we are avoiding those negative feelings about ourselves and we're pouring it into the business. I think sometimes this is what people are referring to when they talk about the founder with the chip on their shoulder. Well, where did the chip come from? What's that feeling? Who are we trying to prove wrong? Is that still a conversation that's serving us? And so ideally, instead of running away from negative feelings, we'd be running into positive responsibilities in our business. That's a transition that I've been reflecting on since I read this post, is what weight do I want to lift? What load do I want to bear? And how does that make me feel when I'm responsible in those ways, when I face those challenges? That's in front of all of us. But certainly, if you have a lot of negative feelings about yourself and your life, and then you find yourself on a couch with a video game remote controller and millions of dollars in the bank, a lot of things can go badly in that circumstance. So something to consider, that money can also exacerbate certain problems. I think we can all think of examples. So really important to consider, if one of our primary drives is money, what are we going to do with that? How is that going to be positive in your life versus negative? And then the 4th reason is the lack of a platform. And it's really tough to repeat. You got certain founders that are just, ridiculously good, like Jason Cohn, for example. Every single business he starts is better than the last one. He also has an incredible amount of talent. I interviewed a bunch of people like this in my book. Jason Eckenroth is someone that I quoted a few times, where he was talking about the sort of rose-colored glasses, and you sort of think, well, it's going to be stress-free and easy, but then on the other side of it, well, I got like my personal wealth bag, but like it'd be totally irresponsible for me to like cash flow a team out of that money. So you sort of do the exit math and you're like, well, now I don't have a team that shows up every day and works on my vision. You need to really have huge numbers to be able to afford, multiple people making big salaries in order to work on something that you're passionate about. And so how much is that platform that you've built worth to you? So I think that's a fascinating thing too. And the real thing about being tough to repeat, I think, is, at the end of Jake's post, he's talking about, okay, you're this really successful person now, and now you got to go out and be an idiot again. You got to fail at stuff. And that can be paralyzing. And it is true that a lot of us took advantage of timing and luck. And now maybe we have to go back and skill up and learn something new. But back to the purpose thing, like, what are we really ministering to here? Who are we worried about looking bad to? And it's skilling up and learning from scratch, being curious. I think those are the things that drive purpose. So I think if all of us have felt that disconnect, like you're more aligned with your company, you're less aligned over time. And I think thinking through these things, especially like, what challenges are you motivated to take on? What challenges are you willing to make mistakes on? It's a really fascinating place to explore. So should you sell your business if someone is offering you a crap ton of money? It's kind of weird. Like, I talk a lot about this in the book, but probably the first thought experiment you're going to want to do is, does this shelve financial questions for a lifetime? And if it does, one of the commenters said this on the post, it's like, better problem to have, like, sort out this purpose thing once you got your bag than, maybe not being able to repeat that success again. And I basically agree with that. Because if anything, maybe the business was shrouding these issues that were there the whole time, right? They were creating a blind spot. And so it seems like Jake's on a very worthwhile journey right now of self-discovery. And now he's got the financial insurance and backdrop to be able to do it. There is a lot of risk in continuing to run a company that then tanks and might not be able to get you there financially. In particular, if, being honest with ourselves, like, are we a lifer in our industry? Are we extremely talented? Are we at the top of our industry? Or are we an opportunist? Like, what level is like the opportunism where the timing and the luck lined up and I got in it for the money? And in that situation, the way Jake describes himself, it sounds like he made a really smart decision. The results speak for themselves, but those windows close. And if you're not committed to being a part of that industry for a full lifetime, if you're not finding purpose from it, if it's just masking the idea that you didn't have a purpose in the first place, my purpose was just to get money, well, mission accomplished. I do think it's worth it. And one of the things that Ian and I have added to our monthly financial reviews is business valuations. So I think it's just in general worth asking yourself, what is the valuation of what I'm building? Because it really put into relief like your different product lines and your different business ideas and stuff. Some are just simply going to be worth a whole lot more than others. One of the other things just that I wrote down here is just having a clear idea of what you want to do next. You've got a lot of time to consider this because it typically takes a long time to sell your business. So if I were to go through this process again, I would want to have like a lightweight, let's fail at this project that I would jump back into within a couple months of selling the business, whether it's, something creative, something that's not a big deal if it fails, but just to get back on the horse and to have something that you care about in the world, something that you feel the world needs to hear about. Something that you think needs to be improved, or anything that's like in that sort of purpose vein. I just think that at the end of the day, it's about purpose. It's about doing something more than just trying to remove pain from your life, but actually choosing a challenge that could benefit somebody else. I think that's the name of the game at the end of the day. And it's something I just don't hear a lot about. But it's crushing when you don't have it. I think that that's the whole framework of this conversation. It is crushing to be isolated and in a mode in life when you're simply trying to remove pain from yourself. In fact, let's just think like how many celebrities have died young in a sedated state where the celebrity approach to life, at least very generally, seems to be just pleasing others all the time, finding a way to please them. And then when you're not pleasing them, your value goes down, and literally dying in a sedated state because they've taken this concept of removing stress and pain to the nth degree versus the opportunity we all have, which is to carry a load, to pick up the weight, to take on a challenge, and to do something genuinely valuable for others. One of the regrets that I have when we sold the business is that I didn't take managing my money that seriously. And that experience has caused me, when I'm doing consulting sessions with listeners of this show, we will very often circle back to personal finance and just like ramping back up. It was almost like the bigger the number was, like the less I cared about it. And to a degree, that's still a little bit true. I'm not talking about like, like not getting the nice latte at Starbucks or whatever. I'm talking about really getting a group of people around you who can give you differing and challenging opinions about how to allocate funds. And most importantly, to preserve the dollars that you've worked so hard for. So this is really something when we talk about income goals for founders, and then I see a big number coming through every month, we don't stop there. I'm pressing deeper. Okay, it's arrived in your bank account. Now let's talk about tax withholdings. Now let's talk about your savings rate. Now let's talk about where the savings is going. Because at the end of the day, that is the fruit of your labor. Like what ends up in savings, in investments, not what comes through from your business. For me, as a founder, it's like I'm looking at like my income and my net profit, and it's like, bam, that was my income. It's like, not really. Your income is what you manage to save and to invest. And I don't think I took that knowledge set as seriously because, hey, it's a bunch of money. It's kind of cool, but it really, really adds up over time. And so that's sort of my final piece about this whole exiting thing. And I think if I rewrote the book, I would write a chapter on how founders manage their money after they got it. And that's perhaps a conversation we can continue to have on the show this year, because it's just been a personal interest of mine that like I don't, do the handoff when we're talking about net profit. Now I'm pushing into the founders' finances themselves. Like, what's your monthly burn? Especially what's your savings rate? And then the next step where I have no expertise, but try to surround myself with smart people is what are we doing on the investing side? So that's it. The cool thing is, if you do a great job with this, you don't need to sell. Typically, you can find yourself in a situation where you've earned and invested the profits from your company over many, many years, and then you're in the driver's seat to make this difficult decision. Do I take an offer? Do I exit? Or do I continue to build out this platform? Is it, giving me purpose? Is it giving me good challenges? Is it improving me in a way that I esteem and that I feel good about? Ideally, it's an incredible thing that our companies can give us to a degree outside of our personal lives. That is really special. And when it goes away, whether it's because we had a chip on our shoulder or some unresolved things, or because now we have no challenge could compete with the challenges that company gave me, it can be a very devastating position to find ourselves in, but completely avoidable if you listen to episodes like this and read my $5 ebook. I'm curious if you guys have ideas about finding purpose through work. My sort of takeaway from this post is that maybe if we think about our companies a little bit more like going to the gym, like there's a weight to be lifted, and once lifted, it gives us purpose. It might be a more interesting mindset than I just can't wait to not have any of this weight in my life. I'm going to find the next coconut tree and chill out underneath it, and everything's going to be good, because it's not going to be good there. And we know, because a lot of us can go to that coconut tree right now and sit there. And then we can check in with ourselves after a month of it and see how we feel. So I think this mindset of the getting a renewed sense of excitement and intentionality and the privilege of being able to choose these things, when, let's be honest, the vast majority of people don't. And they do have to tolerate a lot of things that don't drive purpose for them. We don't have to find ourselves in that situation. That's it for this week. We'll see you next Thursday morning. Thanks for listening.